In this video, you're going to learn pre-game questions that you can ask yourself before a performance. Hey there, I'm Eli Straub, mental performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. The reason you want to ask yourself these questions is because you're trying to get into the best mindset to compete. And we want to look at the mindset that you have as an athlete or a performer as something that you can control, as something you can influence. You don't want to show up to the field or court or your performance and hope to feel confident, for example. You want to know that you're going to feel confident. The way you know you're going to feel confident is you work on getting into that state. By asking yourself these questions, you're going to start to really figure out what current state you're in, what current mindset you're in, so then you can actually work on influencing your mindset going into the game. Question number one is, what am I thinking about right now? Your self-talk and your thoughts are so important because they're going to have an impact on the way that you feel. If you're having a lot of negative thoughts before performance, then it's much more likely that you're going to feel less confident. You're going to doubt yourself. If you're having anxious thoughts, so thoughts about what's going to happen, then you're going to feel more anxiety going into the performance. Whenever I'm working with an athlete, one of the first things we do is something known as a self-talk exercise, where we identify their current negative thoughts that they have before a game, and we work on changing them for more positive and productive thoughts. So for yourself, when you're asked this question where you think, okay, what am I thinking about before a game? What that does is it helps you focus on your thoughts. And if you notice that you're having negative thoughts, well, then you work on having a little bit more positive and productive thoughts in that moment. Question number two is, am I thinking too much about that outcome? Now, I mentioned the outcome just a second ago and how that's going to lead to more anxiety. It's so easy before a game to think about the outcome because the reason you're competing is to win, right? You're competing to do your best. You're competing because you want to win. And sometimes that desire to win can have a negative effect by causing you to think too much about the outcome to where you start to worry about whether or not you're going to win. Or you may start to fear making mistakes because you know if I make a lot of mistakes, that's going to negatively impact my chances of winning. So you want to ask that question, am I thinking too much about the outcome? And if you find that you are thinking too much about the outcome, you need to focus more on the process. And that takes us into question number three, which is, what are my objectives for today? I always recommend that athletes set objectives for themselves during performances that align with the process. Because in order to not think too much about the outcome, you need to think about something more that's going to be in line with the process. To think about something in line with the process easily, you want to have already set some objectives for the game. So you want to ask yourself before the game starts, what are my objectives? That's going to help remind you about what your objectives are. Now, to learn more about setting performance objectives, I've put a card right here that links to a video I made that goes into more detail on setting performance objectives. Question number four is, how's my breathing? It's very important as you go into a game that you're controlling your breath. Because if you can control your breath, you're going to work to calm yourself down. You can keep yourself more focused. And so you want to make sure that your breathing doesn't start to become very shallow and rapid. That's what happens whenever you start to fear a little bit or whenever you're feeling really nervous or anxious. So you ask yourself the question, how's my breathing? If you ask that question and you notice that you are breathing very shallow, then you start to take some deeper breaths. By taking deeper breaths, you're going to center your attention more in the present moment and work to calm yourself down as you start the game. Question number five is, why should I be confident? This is an interesting question because instead of thinking, how can I feel confident? You ask yourself, why should I feel confident? What's cool about this is when you ask yourself that question, immediately your mind's going to think about all the reasons why you should be confident. What that does is it helps you start to think about your strengths. And if you can really focus on your strengths going into a game, that's going to lead to you feeling more confident and having more belief in yourself. It also forces you to start thinking about maybe some past successes, and that's something I always recommend if you're dealing with some fear, self-doubt, or anxiety. Focus on some past successes before the game. Really think about times where you've succeeded recently. And if you ask yourself the question, why should I feel confident? And you say, well, I had a really good game last game. There you go. You're going to start thinking about that past success, and it's going to remind you why you should feel confident. So those are 5 questions that you can ask yourself heading into a performance. To make them easier, I encourage you to write them down, maybe on a note card or something, or you can just start to memorize them. But if you ask yourself these questions, that's going to help you make sure that you're taking control of your mindset going into a performance. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.